Drive 5 Jeff from Two Hacks Garage. Well, this isn't Jimmy's shop. This isn't Micah's shop. Yep, this is my garage. And while it looks like Christmas came early for Two Hacks Garage, well, it really didn't. Christmas kind of came early for a friend of mine. What this all is here is this is a ton of brand new parts for a 388 cubic inch small block Chevy. It's basically a 383, but 60 over instead of 30 over. What's going to happen is I'm going to work with Jimmy on building a 388 cubic inch small block Chevy for a friend of mine named Todd. Todd's the one you've seen a while back that's got that really nice 1980 Z28. Perfect interior, paint is absolutely flawless. It was done by Eddie. But over time, Todd has decided, you know what, he wants a really, really nice engine for this. Something streetable, something to sound good, something to go to cruises, and just overall have fun with. So him and I have been talking for the past few weeks, and we decided, you know what, let's go ahead and put that engine together. I happen to have an extra 350 that was a 4-bolt main laying around, and I also had a wish list of all kinds of cool parts to make this engine happen. We've discussed horsepower numbers, what it's going to be used for, and all that. So this is what you see here, an absolute ton of engine parts for a small block Chevy. Isky cam, made in the USA. There's an Eagle Performance crankshaft and complete rotating assembly. It's got Keith Black pistons, Brodix cylinder heads that are CNC ported, 64cc chambers, 202-160 stainless valves. We've got an MSD ignition, Scorpion roller rockers, all ARP bolts, Quickfuel Technologies carburetor. It's got a Holley performance single plane high rise intake. Everything's, you know, pretty good quality stuff. So what you're going to see is us go through and build this engine for Todd. Now, I haven't worked with Jimmy in a while, so I'm going to have to get used to doing that again. So here in a little bit, you're going to see us at his shop, kind of doing some prep work. What we have lined up for today is just a couple small things like that. Jimmy's going to go ahead and measure the pistons out for knowing what size bore he needs to have on this engine for the machining work. And we're going to do a lot of miscellaneous stuff. You know, open up the oil passages up a little bit. We're going to go in there and we're going to run a tap through all of the bolt holes and all that to get the grime out. And then from there, it'll get, you know, machined, hot tanked, the surface decked, all that fun stuff. So with that, guys, you know what we're going to do is I've explained this enough. It's going to be a really cool small block Chevy build for a really quick and soon to be slick. I said that backwards. Slick, soon to be quick, 1980 Z28. In fact, we need a project name for this. Kind of reminds me of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So this is going to be Project Fast Times. Yes, still going to be working with Micah a lot on Project 9194. The Thunderbird's sitting right here, collecting parts to get banging on that at a later point. And I also got some more other cool small block Chevy stuff coming up soon too. Even though I'm a Mopar guy, doing a small block Chevy, doing a Ford, doing a Chevy truck, yeah, whatever. Midlife crisis, maybe, I don't know, maybe I lost my mind. Maybe I'm just learning new things. So with that, guys, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take Project Fast Times over to Jimmy's, and we're going to see what he's got going on, and we're going to start a little bit of work. So with that, guys, we'll see you here in a few minutes.
No.
Well, here's a familiar
There's
face.
425.
Back at Jimmy's. I've got Todd's pistons here. First step we're going to do, as you saw earlier, I showed you got all the parts in. I do have the engine block here at Jimmy's. He's going to take care of the machine work on that. But the first step is, before we can do anything, is we got to measure pistons for the cylinders. So that's what Jimmy's going to do right now.
But whenever he gives me the piston, because he's too busy making a video, I'll measure it. Thank you.
There you go, Jimmy.
A little bit of grumpy old machinist humor there. Okay. I made sure the mic was 0. Okay, you're talking 455, 67. They're 450. This piston's 457,000. Okay. Where'd the baggie go?
So real quick, the actual pistons, when you buy them, there is a spec sheet in there that tells you piston to wall clearance, but that's going to determine the overall bore compared to what Jimmy is measuring on the pistons. So that's what we're going to just go through right now and just get these pistons measured up so we know what size bore the cylinders need to be.
And sometimes the pistons vary 1 to 2 thousandths because of the machining processes, but anymore a lot of things is, well, until the scamdemic came along,
Yeah.
things was good. There's number 2, 457. Well, that's not number 2 cylinder, number 2 piston.
So basically what he was doing is he was measuring these pistons. They're a Keith Black piston, and the measuring points are from, per the instructions, from that little pad to that little pad right there. Let me show you something real quick. So the reason he's measuring them, we do need to know what it's going to be like in the bore and like what it needs to actually be bored over to. So Keith Black, they provide these nice instructions on ring gap, how to install them, fun, all that, and all the ring size and all that, and how to measure that. But where it comes into important is right there. So it has the general guidance clearance, and actually it's even got piston orientation. But if you look up here where it says piston to wall clearance, it tells you, depending on what kind of application you're doing, of what you need to do. So Jimmy measured the pistons, 4, 5, 700, all of them, and
4-inch 57.
4-inch 57. So now, based upon the application, he'll know what to machine the block over to.
Okay.
So now that we know the piston to wall clearance, this is the block that's going to be used. Now, remember, it's going to be a 388 cubic inch small block Chevy. Basically, it's the quote-unquote 383, but it's 60 over instead of 30. It's been cleaned once. It's actually in pretty good shape, but Jimmy's going to hot tank it and do the machine work. But if you look in here, all these like casting flaws through here and all that, all the oil galley holes that feed back down, we're going to go ahead and clean up all those castings. And on the front, there's some work that can be done to clean up stuff in here. Basically, the whole idea is to get all the holes in here that feed oil back down, get those burrs taken off, get it kind of rolled in there so the actual oil flows back down where it needs to be. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. The block is here. It is a 4-bolt main block. I have all the parts, as you just saw, and the pistons are measured. So next steps, well, it's going to get cleaned and it's going to get machined. See you soon. All right, so since we do have a little bit of time, Jimmy's kind of mapped out a plan. I've already went ahead and removed all the freeze plugs, all the oil galley plugs, all of that type of stuff's been taken out. Before this thing gets cleaned and all that type of stuff, I'm going to remove the cam bearings. Oh yeah, that was just junk in there.
Yep, the old sediment from the block and rust.
Yep.
Plug up everything.
That's why it's important to clean these blocks, is all these little holes and all that. You know, after a while, all the junk gets settled in here, and it'll actually start plugging stuff. It'll create heating issues. It's important, in my opinion, when you do these to hot tank them, clean them really well. Now, I did spend a lot of time cleaning this, but we're going to make sure any type of oil and gunk and everything is out of here. Real quick, this isn't the hardware we're going to use. I've got all ARP stuff for that, but like I said, it is a 4-bolt main block, and these are the original mains with it, still in the same spots. So yeah, what we're going to do real quick is we are going to remove the cam bearings. All right, before we get really started a whole lot, what Jimmy and I like doing with these is all of your threads in here, we go ahead and run a tap through it. We're not re-tapping anything. Basically, you're going through and you're cleaning up all the threads, getting any gunk out of there, getting them nice and clean. One thing, you know, obviously you want them clean when you're putting new bolts in, but you also want correct torque spec readings when you go ahead and assemble it. So yeah, it takes some time, but you just go through and you run a tap through all the holes, get them all cleaned out, get them ready to go. So
I was going to tell you, now leave it on.
Oh.
I was going to tell you, I have seen people take a cordless drill and put on a tap and wind them through. Well, that's maybe good, maybe bad, both. The biggest problem is, and I've seen them snap taps off in the block, the reason being, some blocks, unlike a small block Chevy, where the bolts go to water, they have a blind hole. Well, they go zinging a tap in a blind hole with a cordless drill. You know what goes happens. It goes tap.
Yep.
Or snap, I mean, not tap, snap. And then the other thing I've seen people do, they stick it on the drill instead of getting the tap started. They just poke it in the hole and pull the trigger. Well, then they've cross-threaded the hole, and that makes a real interesting problem. Because then I have to take a block of steel and drill it, and put a bolt in it here, line it up with that hole, but the block of steel is threaded. No, block of steel is not threaded. And then I have to use it as a guide, and I'll have to have it sticking up like that as a guide to where I can feel the thread to fix their cross-thread problem. And sometimes you can't fix their cross-thread problem because then you got to put a stinking Healy coil in it. And all because somebody didn't use their brain.
Yep. So in a lot of cases, you know, doing it right, taking your time, using hand tools instead of the almighty electric tools does pay off. Plus, when you're doing it with the hand tools, is you can feel it. You know, if you're getting bound up, if something doesn't feel right, you're not going to have that with a power tool. So yeah, if you look closely here, I'm going to zoom in on one of them, and you'll see the before and after. So what Jimmy's doing. So let me get in there. Okay, so right there is Jimmy's going to go ahead and get this one going. And real quick, let me show them what so if you look at that, it's all nasty, it's all rusty, it's probably got crud in it.
I know, it's got rust in it.
And so you get it started correctly. Now watch what happens after he goes through it. So obviously there's resistance on it. You don't want that resistance when you're putting an engine back together. You don't want that rust in there.
Actually, there's more garbage in this hole than there was the first two.
Yeah.
I can feel it. And the reason I'm using a big tap handle on this thing versus the smaller one was one, I like one finger in it in there like this. And it just, the longer the tap handle, the easier it is to spin it.
So now look at that hole. It's nice and clean. It's got all the junk out of it, all the rust out of it. So that is a hole, after obviously going to be cleaning all that, that it would give you a correct torque reading. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this on time lapse, let it go as we do the rest. See you in a few. All right, well, this is what we got done today, guys. Came over, measured the pistons for Todd's engine, and Jimmy's going to do some machining. But as usual, there's always prep work to be done. So some of the stuff we did is we chased all the threads on this block. That's really important, especially on the ones that are going to get torqued down. You want to get a positive torque reading. All that gunk and rust in there, that's going to really foul things up. When I had it on the bottom ends torquing them, all that nasty old oil and gunk was on there. That's no good. So not only, I mean, it's going to get hot tanked, a lot of stuff cleaned up, but we went ahead and chased all the threads anyway. Went in, we took the head dowels out. We went ahead and chamfered different oil holes and made it flow a little bit better in here. Those are just little tricks that Jimmy's learned over the years that really does help with the oiling system. So yeah, actually that's where we're at. Jimmy's got the pistons. He's got a little bit of machining to do, but we got a whole lot of block prep already taken care of. So with that, I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to help Jimmy with some other things, and we'll see you tomorrow. Later.